and voice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. Okay. Welcome to this week's episode of The Fitness Solution, and coming to you this week live from sort of near Birmingham. It's all one place as far as I'm concerned. Is Danielle Roberts, and Danielle. I found Danielle on the good old Gram, and she runs a company called Unlimited You Fit, which is quite close to my heart due to one of my clients, and we'll get into all of that and what she does and why it's been created and all the rest of it. But yeah, Danielle's a very special human being, and there's a reason she's on the podcast. So we're going to get straight into it, and we're just going to figure out everything you want to know about everything. So Danielle, say hey.
Hi, everyone.
How are you today? You all right?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm grand. This is that awkward moment we have to pretend we didn't just have a little chit chat for 10 minutes before I hit the record button. But it's always the case. So so I mentioned your company, and I know a little bit about you because we had that little chat beforehand. But why don't you just tell the listeners, tell the audience exactly who you are, what you do, why you got into it, and just give it to us all because it's really interesting and it's definitely something that I feel personally needs bigging up a lot. Due to the people I've worked with in my career, and I think it's a really interesting facet. And I also think all of my listeners will probably know someone they could probably pass it on to. So let's get to it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I'm Danny. I'm 23. As Adam just said, I'm from near Birmingham. And yeah, so essentially, I suffered a disability at birth called a brachial plexus injury, which is a group of nerves that attach to your spinal cord that kind of control your shoulder, your arm, and your hand. And during birth, most of those nerves were severed from my spinal cord due to doctors being negligent. But I kind of grew up playing sport. Football was kind of my biggest sport, and I played in with non-disabled players for the majority of my playing career. But yeah, eventually I ended up going into disability football and played with Aston Villa, which was an incredible experience. But yeah, as I got older, I just found it more and more difficult to have those opportunities to kind of be active and to find the right way to do exercise for me. So when I was studying my master's degree at university, I actually started experiencing like a large bit of pain, and I just knew that I needed to be more active and do more things, and I just couldn't find any workouts that were kind of accessible for me. And I tried to get a personal trainer.
Hmm.
In my area there was just like not many people knowledgeable.
I'm laughing because one of my clients, Natalie, she loves me talking about. I talk about it all the time. To be honest, she's got cerebral palsy, and her cerebral palsy affects basically the lower half of her body, and her legs are just they're just non-optimal, basically not optimal. That's the wrong word to use. I still struggle. She'll be laughing as she listens to this because she knows how much I worry about making sure I use the right terminology when I talk about it. But her legs just don't function like mine do, and she said that she went to like a few personal trainers, she went to a few classes and stuff like that. And she'd like go up to the guy doing the class and she'd be like, I can't do a squat. And he'd be like, well, then you can't do the class, get out. And that was it. And that was her experience of fitness for her disability. And it kind of left her feeling really crappy, as you could imagine. And like, there's just nothing out there. There's no understanding. And like to not even be willing to try and come up with a alternative, to not even be willing to try and work with the human being that's in front of you, and to just say you can't do fitness because you're disabled. Just when she told me the story, I was nearly in tears. It disgusted me so much, and since then, I mean, I took her on as a client, and it was my pleasure. In fact, I've got a funny story about that as well. But this is about you, not about me. And she's now worked with me for like 3.5 years solidly, week in, week out.
Wow.
I've just got a text from her now, and she's doing fantastic. She's in the wheelchair basketball field, and she's how I found you. It was through her page on Instagram that I came across you. So yeah, I mean, the fitness industry, and I apologize on behalf of the fitness industry to the disabled population of the United Kingdom. We need to do a much better job.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an experience that a lot of disabled people face,
Mm.
and it's such a shame because I think it doesn't need to be that way at all. And like you said, it's just about talking with that human being and figuring out what they can do rather than focusing on what they can't. And then together you'd be able to come up with a solution.
That's true of every human being.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true of absolutely everything and everyone. Like, we all need to focus on what someone can do as opposed to what they can't do. Once we start educating and empowering the client in front of us, the better a client they're going to be. They're going to be more adherent. They're going to be more inspired. They're going to be higher motivated. And we're just going, you can do this. Like, nothing is like, it doesn't matter if it's optimal or not. It's optimal for that human being. It doesn't matter if what's optimal for me is what's not optimal for you. But what's optimal for you won't be optimal for me. So it's a completely and utterly subjective point of view. And as objective personal trainers, we need to be much better empathizing and sympathizing with the people in front of us. What was your experience with the personal trainer you found? What happened?
Yeah, they just kind of weren't interested. I think one of the biggest problems for me as well was kind of like when I first started joining the gym, for like the first 2 years, I literally only used about like 2 or 3 pieces of equipment in the gym because I had no idea how I was supposed to use the equipment with one arm. Like I couldn't even adjust the seat height because you need 2 arms to do it.
It's absurd.
So yeah, it was really funny because I would literally like sit in the gym waiting to find someone who was like a similar height to myself, and then when they'd gone on the machine, I'd
Jump
be like,
on after him.
yeah.
That makes going to the gym such an inconvenience for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, literally, like majority of the time I couldn't really go on my own because like I couldn't, like I said, adjust like the equipment to like be the correct way for me. So I used to have to wait and have someone go with me, which is exactly the opposite of what you want from the gym because it's all about giving someone that independence and helping them live a healthier life.
Absolutely, indeed it is. And how did you find it in terms of football? I was a semi-professional football referee for a long period of my life, and I've always found I personally found football, especially like that kind of level of football that you was at, especially when it comes to that kind of adjusting for individuality. I was always really quite encouraged by it. I always thought they did quite a good job in the Premier League and those kind of tier one, tier two clubs. They always ran good operations and were very open and honest and did the best they could within what they could do. What was your experience in all of that?
No, yeah, my experience in football has always been like incredible. So like probably up until like 14, 15, I played like with able-bodied
Yeah.
category.
And how
So
did you find that?
literally, like I was just another player. I wasn't any different to anybody else. The only thing I couldn't do, obviously, was take throw-ins, which isn't
Yeah,
really
of
that big.
course. Or playing
It
golf.
is, yeah, exactly. But literally, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I learned so much from playing football. You know, not just like the physical health stuff, but like transferable skills that I use like every day.
Really. Must have been great for your confidence as well.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely love football. Like, even though I don't play anymore, it's still like a massive part of my life. I'm still constantly watching it, and yeah,
It's a shame you have to watch West Brom though, isn't
I know.
it?
You.
So, what position did you play on the football field?
Yeah, so I was a defender.
Wow, I'm quite
Yeah,
surprised. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a very physical position, and like it's always the defenders causing the problems whenever I was refereeing them. So, like, the fact you was able to do that at such a high level, that's incredible.
Yeah, I don't really think I ever felt any barriers when I was playing football.
Normal.
Until actually I went into the disability sports sector because I'm a female. There's actually not like those professional pathways for disabled female football players.
And
So
so, what happened?
so at Aston Villa, it was a boys team, a male team that I was playing with, and then I started training regularly and playing all the games, and then essentially we had like some coaches from like England as well come along, and they basically pulled me to one side and said, look, you can't play anymore because you're
Jesus.
female.
Oh wow.
And the only thing you could do is go back into an able-bodied league. That was the only option I had, which at that time, because of my disability, I didn't have the upper body strength to play
Yeah.
at that level anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just wasn't an option for me at that time.
Right. Fair enough. How did that make you feel?
Yeah, rubbish, obviously. I mean, football, like I said, it was a huge part of my life. And up until that point was literally the only thing that I kind of felt I was any good at. And yeah, everything from making friends to staying healthy was football. That's all I did. It was all I knew. So yeah, it was really rubbish. But that's when I started getting into the gym. So it's kind of led me to this path that I'm on now. So.
And so tell us about Unlimited You Fit. Is that right? Have I called it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Go on,
Yeah.
tell us all about it. Tell us what it is, because it sounds astounding and it sounds like something that's just phenomenal. So go.
Yeah, so essentially, it's going to be an online fitness platform where disabled people will actually be able to find accessible and inclusive workouts that they can do and follow along. All the exercises are actually demonstrated by a disabled person.
Excellent.
So none of that, following someone who's just pretending to have an injury.
What, that actually happens?
All the time, yeah.
Are you joking?
No.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
So there's people like on YouTube and stuff pretending to have a leg injury just so they can do a workout for someone.
Yeah, they'll be like, well, this is like a seated workout for anyone with like a leg injury, and I'm just like, oh God, this is a bit cringe. Like,
fair enough. I mean, I'll come clean. I've done a seated workout, but that was at the request of Natalie, and I said to her, well, what do you want? What do you want me to do? And she kind of designed it for me and said, go do it. It'd be great, and I'll show it with all my friends and stuff. So if I'm guilty of that, then I apologize. But
no, I think
yeah, go on. No, go on.
Yeah, no, I think that's like completely acceptable because you was kind of working with a client and you've worked with that client closely, so you understand the kind of barriers that she's faced.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it came organically. I'd never have kind of done it out in the middle of nowhere. Just randomly. Oh, let's see if I can get some disabled clients on board. That's a bit. That's a bit. What's the word? Opportunistic.
Yeah, but I mean, if you just like jump onto YouTube and search like a seated workout, they'll advertise them for like, oh, this is for your anyone with a mobility issue or an injury, you can do this seated workout, and then it's like someone that's fully abled and non-injured demonstrating all the workouts.
Right, fair enough. How do you so sorry, we digressed, didn't we? So Unlimited You Fit, so it'd be full of, it's all going to be demonstrated by disabled personal trainers or just disabled athletes that how are you building it?
It's a mix. It's a real mix at the minute, which I personally kind of love. So I've got a couple of disabled personal trainers, a couple of athletes, and then I've also just got disabled people who are looking to like work out and be a bit more active and healthier. They reached out and was like, I'd love to do a workout. Just tell me what I've got to do. So I put the workout together and sent it over to them, and then they did it. And then obviously I check it to make sure form and everything is good because I don't putting out bad content. But yeah.
Excellent. And how do people like get involved with it?
Literally just drop me an email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What and what is there a cost attached? Is it your business? What is it? Or is it just a resource?
Yeah, so we're planning on kind of making it subscription based platform where we'll kind of always try and release new content every month, and we'll have some like healthy recipes and like a community attached to it. Because like at the minute there's actually not a fitness app for disabled people.
Right.
And obviously, given the situation that we're in, I think everyone's relied heavily on fitness apps at the minute. And yeah, there's just no resources for disabled people. And I think it's time that changed.
Fair enough. That sounds great. So is it an app someone will be able to download? Like, is it still in its gestation period? When's it going to be released? What's the situation?
Yeah, I'm hoping towards the end of August, like early September at the very latest. I'm just kind of, the trouble is trying to build all the content.
Yeah.
It's such like so time consuming. And
tell me about it.
And yeah, obviously for me it's really important that I actually work with disabled people and have them demonstrating the exercise as well. So it's finding people willing to come on board and work out and film a workout for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you need a beast of strength and just hardcore amazement, then I'll give you Natalie's number. She'll definitely put something together for you without a shadow of a doubt. She's phenomenal. So I'm volunteering her, but I know she'd get involved. And she's very much a disabled activist as well. Like, she works for a disabled charity. It's all about making sure venues, because there's a big issue with venues and their their access abilities and how good they are at basically accommodating for disabled people. And she works for a charity that's all about making sure all that gets transformed at like Reading Festival, Doddinghurst, and all these kinds of places. So yeah, I reckon she'd be well up for helping you out, get a bit of content, extra content for you. Sound good?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So that's great. I mean, yeah. How do you? I'm interested with your single arm issue. Is
Yeah.
it okay to call it a single arm issue? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like a bull in a china shop sometimes. So I'll say something and I'll be like, oh crap, was that wrong? So just tell me if I'm being bang out of order. I won't take offense. How have you managed to make sure you've maintained balance in your body to the best of your ability? And how do you? Because I've been writing a lot about balance recently, actually, mainly to do with motivation and inspiration, but that's a whole other side story. But yeah, I imagine if you have no access to one arm, it's your right arm, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you literally physically just can't move it, or you can't independently move it.
Yeah, so I can't independently move it.
Okay.
It's very little. So I actually had one of my pec muscles transferred to my bicep to try and give me that flexion and extension.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow, what an operation.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And when did you have that done?
I had it done when I was like a child, like really, really young.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of been growing all my life. It's kind of a really good movement that I've got now. So I can kind of do like a bicep curl. That's pretty much the
That's
only exercise I can
fantastic.
do. But yeah.
That's amazing. And so do you like? I suppose you know no different, do you? So for me to say, do you feel disbalanced or anything like that? You obviously, it is who you are, isn't it? You've never known something else. So I imagine it just feels completely and utterly normal for you.
Yeah, it does feel normal, but at the same time, obviously, like I can tell that there's obviously loads of muscle imbalances going on, and it's just about trying your best. And I always say, even though my movement is really minimal and limited, it's all about using what you have. So I'll do like passive movements, and I can do like a shoulder shrug. So I'll do like my bicep curls and shoulder shrugs, and try and make the most of what I've got, because I think that's
Yeah.
so important as well.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, that's a great message to put out there for anyone. Just use what you have to the best of your ability, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what would like an upper body workout look like for you?
Pretty much what it would look like for anybody else. I just do it with one arm.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Good. And that's amazing. Yeah. Have you since been able to find like comfort in the gym?
Yeah. So, I mean, prior to COVID and lockdown and everything, I was going a lot. But actually, I kind of got to a point where every time I went to the gym, someone would make a horrible comment and tell me,
Really?
yeah, they'd literally come up to me in the middle of the gym and be like, "You're doing it wrong." And I'm like a personal trainer myself. I'm qualified. I know what I'm doing. So I thought one time, I'm just going to hear them out. I'm just going to see what they say, like why I'm doing it
Yeah.
wrong. And they were like, "Oh, you're meant to be using two arms." And I'm like,
Sorry.
seriously?
Do you think they just wasn't aware that you were disabled?
Possibly, because to be fair, if I'm like wearing a long sleeve t-shirt or a jumper,
Okay.
it's probably not that noticeable.
Okay. So is it quite noticeable if you used to just see your arm?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, obviously, every time you go to the gym and you get these comments, it's really off-putting. So at the minute, I'm actually just building a gym in my back garden, so I don't actually
That's
go to the gym anymore.
That just breaks my heart, though. It really
Yeah,
breaks my heart because, I mean, one thing I tell all of my clients when they first step into the gym, no matter who they are, is like, this is your safe space. Like, I want this to be as much as a comfort for you as your bed, right? It's not going to be as easy as your bed, but I want it to be as much as a safe space for you as your bed. Like, there is nothing you can't say in here. There is nothing you can't do. If you want to come in here and just swear about your kids for an hour, come in here and swear about your kids for an hour. If you want to come in here and punch the wall for an hour, come in here and punch a wall for. I don't care what you do, really. Like, this is your safest space. Like, with me, talking to me, we're going to work on you, and anything goes. There's no right or wrong, just exploration. And all I want from you is just for you to show up and be yourself. I don't need anything else. And that's what the gym should be for everyone. And it's so sad that it's not. It's so sad that there's big swathes of the population that just don't feel comfortable in there and just feel judged every time they step into it, and it comes from extreme lack of empathy from the general public and the fitness industry for all types of people. Um, that's incredibly sad. I mean, it's lovely that you're building your own gym. That'd be much easier for you to get content.
Yeah. No, yeah, like you are right. I think the gym it is a safe place for so many people. But yeah, for like a large.
As long as those people are able-bodied.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think? What do you think people need to do? What do you think the fitness industry could do to transform it? Like if you could like build your dream gym for disabled people, able-bodied people, people of all creeds and races, what would you like? What would that look like to you? What kind of attitudes and mantras would you adopt? What kind of programs would you design? Like what you must have thought about it, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
I
what does
think,
it look like?
yeah, so like for me being like a single arm, it sounds so stupid, but one of the biggest issues for me is removing weights that people have left on the machines.
No, that sounds perfectly reasonable.
Like
And you know what? I'm terrible for doing that
off.
myself, right? I mean, I don't use machines very often, but it's like once I've finished 3 sets of 6 or whatever, and I'm exhausted, I'm like, last thing I want to do is strip a bar down. But that's extremely selfish. And I know it's something I personally need to work on. And especially post-COVID, like I'm going to have to work on it a lot more because you have to. So I'll have to do it. And it's a great way of burning some extra calories, right? And
Yeah,
but that's yeah. So like the number one rule would be re-rack your weights.
yeah, literally. And like don't leave dumbbells like all over the floor. Like if someone's in a wheelchair
Yeah,
and they're
that's
going up,
ridiculous. Yeah.
like it's just crazy. It's basically just like your common sense stuff. Firstly, that would
Yeah.
like massively improve access to everybody.
And then what? Secondly, what else would improve access to everybody?
I think just normalizing disability and differences.
Right. And how do we
So
go about doing that?
have more disabled personal trainers, have more disabled people leading fitness classes, have, you know, not just even disabled people, like different races, different genders, like more diversity in the fitness industry in general is like so needed.
Yeah, but yeah, I couldn't agree more. Do you think part of the reason that doesn't exist is because of how at the minute how inaccessible it is? So
Yeah,
disabled
yeah,
people just don't see it as an opportunity for them.
yeah, definitely. I think for people in wheelchairs and people with mobility issues, there's a massive task in front of them to even get to the gym. Like, how are they going to get there? Is there a taxi that's accessible, available? Is there a bus that's accessible, that's available? Do they have a car? Have they got to wheel themselves there? Because if it's like 3 miles and they've got to push themselves in the wheelchair, that's like a far way.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous warm up.
Like there's like so many like other things that disabled people have to think about before they even get to the gym. So then when they get to the gym, the last thing that they need is for that environment to be so difficult and toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. God, blimey, what a discussion, eh?
Yeah.
How do you and what about the brains of people? How do we change those?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Isn't it just, eh? Isn't it?
No, I'm not sure. I think, to be honest, half of it is just having conversations like this. I think some people don't even realise like the difficulties that some people face.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think when I first started working with Natalie, so the story that I have about her is I when she first showed up, I thought she had well, she's got cerebral palsy, but I thought she had cystic fibrosis, which is like a medical lung condition, and and I don't know why I thought that. Because she messaged me cerebral palsy, but I just read it as cystic fibrosis. I don't know why. And then she came into the gym, and I remember her kind of walking up to the gym, and I was like, huh, I thought was like, so, okay, cool. So like in my brain, I was just having this argument with myself. Okay, not what I was expecting, all the rest of it and everything else. That's fine. And then I said to her, so let's talk about your disability. She was like, I've got cerebral palsy. I was like, wait, it's not cystic fibrosis. She was like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. And then we had to spend like 10 minutes having a chat about that. And it was so funny. And I said to her in that first session, I was like, look, I mean, and I suppose this is, if you're a personal trainer listening to this, and I can only talk from my experience with my client. I can't talk about everybody. And I think I'm very lucky in the fact that Natalie is she's very strong-minded, and she's very understanding of who she is and how the world, how she operates with the world and how the world operates with her. She's very aware of it, and she's not bitter about anything. She's very happy-go-lucky, easygoing kind of person, which is really, really nice. But if you are a fitness pro, like I just thought I've just got to be completely honest here. And I just said to her, I have zero experience in training someone who is disabled. I have zero experience in your particular disability, because your particular disability calls up all kinds of different issues in different people. There's no, like, it's not a generic standard. Um, and I said to her, there might be times where I'm just like, I'm just going to sit you down and we'll just do some arm work, some chest work, some shoulder work, stuff like that, just for safety. So I grow my confidence in training you, and you grow your confidence in being trained, and we develop that relationship together. And we both had to kind of enter into this contract of real trust in each other, understanding, but also one of like just no bullshit. Like, no, I didn't have to pretend. I had to drop my ego and just be like, I'm gonna learn as I go with you, and I hope that's okay, because I can't do it any other way. And she was cool with that, totally. And I was like, and if you think something's not safe, you tell me. If I think something's not safe, I'll tell you. If I'm worried about something, you can tell me whether I should get on my horse and go, or you can tell me whether you're willing to give it a try, and we'll just see what happens. And luckily, she's one of the kind of people who always says yes to everything. She'll say yes to, I'll tell her to do an overhead press, and she'll be like, yeah, okay, no worries. And to see how much she's grown in the 3 years I've worked with her is huge. Like the exercise she does now compared to how she was when she first showed up. And it just shows that being honest in that initial relationship, understanding in that initial relationship, and just on both sides of the equation is incredibly important. But I think obviously the disabled person is more likely to be able to be like that, because they understand that it's probably going to intimidate most personal trainers, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people say like you need to go on all these courses and do all this training, but in reality, there's not really like a course that you can go to, because as you just said, like every single disabled person is completely different.
Well, they're a person.
Yeah,
Everybody is
exactly.
different.
Yeah. But in terms of even like disability, you could have two people with the exact same diagnosis
Yeah.
and their like abilities would be completely different. So it's just about, I think, like you said, it's trust, and it's having that trust in each other to try new things, and to also have that line where you're like, okay, I'm not comfortable with that.
Mm. And neither of you taking that as an offense. Like me as the
Yeah,
trainer, I never took offense if Natalie went, nah, it's not going to happen. I was like, okay, well, what can happen? I'd always look for what could we do, as opposed to getting fixated on her not doing what she wanted. And I then had to make my peace with my own ego in that it might not be ideal for her goals. Like it might not be, in terms of like let's say she wanted to lose weight, in terms of the exercise we was doing, and I needed her to do a deadlift or something like that. Um, and in terms of her programming, but she on that day was just too knackered to do it, or she was just too, she just didn't feel safe that particular day or whatever, which is perfectly fine. I had to let go of all the work I'd planned and all what I wanted to achieve of her. And I just had to respect her for who she was at that moment in time. And I had to let my ego go as a trainer. And even though it might not be ideal for her in that moment, it really is.
yeah, I think that's like, again, like I think disability is so inconsistent, and
Mm,
I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. I think people,
absolutely.
you have this disability and then that's the way it is, but day to day your day could be completely different. One day you could be full of pain, the next day you could be virtually pain free. It just depends.
Mm.
And some days you'll be able to show up at the gym and you'll be able to give 90%, and other days you'll show up and only be able to give like 10%. But I think the biggest thing is that you actually show up and give that 10%. And as you've just said, like your programming wasn't as you wished it to be for that particular day, because she didn't have it in her to do those particular exercises on that day. But it doesn't mean that it's not worth turning up or doing that little bit of 10%, because doing something is better than nothing, right?
Nothing can come of nothing. If we invest
Exactly.
in nothing, we get nothing in return, as Shakespeare says. Well, King Lear says it, but it was Shakespeare's words. Yeah, no, 1,000%. But like again, I think really the nub of this conversation, which I'm loving, is the fact that disabled people are just people.
Yeah.
Because it's the same as me. Sometimes I'll get to the gym and I just cannot be effed. I just cannot. I just do not have the energy to work out that day. I just don't. And that's for whatever reason. Maybe I had drank 4 beers the night before, or maybe I just had a bad night's sleep, or, and for, women who are listening, like maybe it's just the wrong time of, the weeks, or maybe your kids have had you up all night, or whatever it might be. We all go through bouts of energy and no energy. We all go through bouts of a weird ache and pain here and not a weird ache or pain there. And yeah, I understand there's probably a bigger magnifying glass on certain aspects of that in a disabled person's life, or the frequency of that occurring might be a little bit higher, but it's no different essentially, is it?
Literally, no, it's exactly the same. This is what I always say, like, I'm no different to anybody else. Like you said, some days you'll be motivated, other days you won't. Some days you'll feel like smashing out your PBs and achieving all the weights that you want to lift, and then other days you'll be like, nah, I can't do that today.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. I think it's just going with the flow and feeling what you feel and doing what feels right in that moment.
Yeah. And, yeah, screw optimalization. It doesn't mean you can't achieve what you want to achieve. Like consistency is number one for everybody. Consistency is what drives you forward. And if you can be ruthlessly consistent, then you're going to achieve what you want to achieve at the right period of time. One thing I have noticed with disabled people that I talk to and I've come across is one thing they don't have compared to general population is they very rarely put a strict time limit on their goals.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive facet to be learned from. Like they really understand the concept of the less strict you make your time restraint for your goals, the more you're going to succeed and be able to be consistent, and you're going to just respect the process a lot more. You're all very much, and I know I'm speaking in general terms, but it's just from my experience. It feels like to me, you're all very much better at being very present in the process than you are necessarily just kind of focusing on the result.
Yeah, I think well, personally for me,
Yeah.
I'm like that because like I have to keep trying.
Mm.
Like like it sounds really silly, but like even like making a sandwich with one arm is like difficult.
I mean, I'm not if I set myself the challenge of trying to live my life with one arm for a day, I'd be exhausted by the end of it, and I know I would give up within about 5 minutes. Right? I can't imagine how hard it must be, and no one can.
Yeah, but like as like a young female, like one of the biggest issues that I've faced is being able to tie up my own hair.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so for like 17
It
years,
must be one of the
literally,
hardest things ever.
I practiced like for 17 years and I couldn't figure it out. And I didn't figure it out until I was like literally 17. And that day was so huge. And I just had to keep trying. I knew eventually I'd figure out a way that worked for me. And eventually I got there because I just kept trying and I kept trying. And it was a little goal that I had. And I could have given up when, like, years before when I was younger. And I could have put a time limit on it and been like, right, I'm going to do this by the age of 12. That's what I'm aiming for. And if I'd have just stopped when I was 12 because I hadn't figured it out at that point, I never would have been able to tie my hair up for like the rest of my life.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I mean, you're not wrong. But that brings up another conversation of how interesting, like the advantage, like one of the probably unthought of advantages of being disabled is that you probably, I know what I want to say, but it's not the words I particularly want to use. Okay, so I want to say you get used to the feeling of failure, and then that driving you forward again, right?
Yeah.
Like you said in your example, like you got to the age of 12, that was your aim, and it didn't happen, but you knew you had to carry on, and you knew that by only not managing it at 12, you could then carry on and keep growing, and then eventually you'll get there. See, whereas I think those lessons as you're growing up through life probably teach you a very good lesson for life, right?
Yeah.
And they just keep you, and I think it's a definite mental fortitude that I know I personally don't have. I know if I got to 12 and I wasn't able to do that, I probably would have given up. But that's because I live in a different context to you.
Yeah, like for me and for like a lot of disabled people I know, it's like all the tiny victories that happen
Yeah,
even
gotcha.
before the massive victory.
But
Like,
that should be true of everyone. We should all celebrate the tiny victories because that keeps us
absolutely,
present.
absolutely.
Like I suppose really at the nub of it, we're getting to the bottom of like I suppose every day is just kind of like I imagine for many people who are severely disabled, every day is another win for them, right?
Yeah, probably. I can't speak to that.
No, I know, but I don't know, my imagination's running away with me. But that must be quite an empowering feeling as well. Um, and so, yeah, that's great. Oh, what a lovely thought. And that's definitely something we don't have. Like, and I don't have as an able-bodied person. I know I definitely, and I know like from the experiences of my clients, they don't have that. How has your disability? Has it had any mental health issues? Has it created anything there, or has it all been okay?
I think I've been really lucky actually. Like, I haven't really experienced any mental health issues or anything like that, but I
That's
know
phenomenal.
that a lot of disabled people do.
Yeah,
I think if I'd have acquired my injury later on in life and I hadn't been born with it, it might have been a different story.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Have you ever met anyone who did end up with your injury later on in life?
not face to face.
Okay.
Obviously, as a child, I was always in like hospitals and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it was typically people with the exact same injury from acquiring it in the exact same way.
Yeah.
So yeah, you typically kind of meet the same group of people, which is a bit weird because in the real world that would never happen. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
so many different disabilities. But yeah, I have met a few people who have acquired disabilities later on in life, but I don't really know them like to have a discussion like
Yeah,
this.
of course.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I know I met a guy who actually lost his leg playing football.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like a horrible tackle, and it like severed and yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah.
And he said it's been like pretty difficult for him to kind of
Imagine.
overcome that and to readjust to his life. Yeah, I personally I don't know how I'd cope with acquiring a disability now, but I mean, having one arm, it's something that I do constantly think about because I know at some point in my life there's going to come a time where I have overuse issues with my left arm,
Right.
and I'll probably get arthritis and all stuff
Okay.
like this. So it's something that, I'm constantly thinking about and always try and be as healthy as I can because I have to look after what I've got.
Uh-huh. This might be a ridiculous question, and please tell me if it is, but it's just popped into my head after what you said. Are you now, is your dominating side your left side or your right side? Like by birth, do you know?
Yeah, so naturally it was my right side.
Was it?
Yeah, my
Excellent.
doctors told my mom that the minute I was born. Yeah.
Right, because I used to work in a gym, and there was a guy, a most wonderful man, and he had one arm, and he came up to the desk once, and he wanted some personal training sessions. I was like, yeah, great, of course, it's not a problem at all, and I was chatting to him, and I've never forgotten like what I said to him, but what I meant was something completely different. And I said to him, like, I think let's just say, I think he didn't have a right arm, and I said to him, "Are you left-handed?" And he was like, well, yeah, obviously. And I was like, no, I meant, are you left dominant or are you right dominant? Because it
Yeah.
would affect the way his legs, like the strength in his legs and the way his body operated. And it was just interested, like in terms of balance and stuff like that. But that's not what I said. I said to him, are you left-handed? Like in the most crass way ever. And I just died 1,000 deaths. And luckily he totally understood that, yeah, that's not what I meant. But yeah, that's really interesting. So what was it? So I suppose you're not aware you've ever really had to train your left side, or have you found yourself fighting that a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, like a massive problem I have anyway is because of my injury, I kind of have this like natural shift in my body where I kind
Yeah.
of position myself a bit weirdly. So
Yeah,
like running is like really weird for me.
I could imagine.
So like my top half is always over my legs, which is really dangerous. I know it sounds bad, but
What you kind of cave forward as you run.
yeah, I kind of lean forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just a balance thing that my body does automatically. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously in my legs as well, like my right leg was always a lot more powerful than my left.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure if it is because I was like
Did you
naturally right-sided.
when you're playing football, did you notice you felt more right-sided than left-sided playing football?
Yeah, so playing football was a bit weird. Like I'd use my left more, but when it came to using like my right leg, which I could like switch between the
You had
two.
like a natural ability with it.
Yeah, my
Amazing.
right was always more powerful.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that's so fascinating. I find that incredibly fascinating. That's the human body is incredible, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, I've got my pec muscle controlling my biceps. So
Yeah, that's astounding. That's just a feat of amazingness, in my opinion. And it's incredible what people can do. I mean, I have a heart condition myself, which I think is why I kind of empathize a lot with this kind of conversation, just because, my life could be very different. I had my operation gone a different way, and I, like I've been in hospitals and I've seen people with my condition, and they're not as fortunate as I was,
yeah,
unfortunately. And and that I found that I remember I was at drama school and I went to the hospital and it hit home, really hit home. And I found that a very humbling experience, a very humbling experience. And I suppose when I got into personal training, I never realized there was this chasm for disabled people. I never even thought about it. And I think actually, in fairness, a lot of personal trainers just don't think about it. It's just not on their radar. It's just not something they imagine exists, or they've never had to confront themselves. But I think having these kinds of conversations and empowering, and hopefully, like if a trainer is listening to this, they might have learned a thing or two about, if a disabled client does come up to them, how that conversation should go, and how to keep that developing. And then you're changing someone's life, which is the most incredible thing you could do. I mean, I'm sure Natalie would attest to how much I've impacted her life, and that's fantastic. And that should be able to be repeated for so many people.
yeah. I think, like you said, it's so important, and half the time it's just a conversation away. It's nothing more than a conversation away.
And that's true of anything, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
that's true of a miscommunication with my fiance. That's true of a row between me and my parents. That's true of like me trying to discipline my nephew or my nieces if they've been naughty or whatever. It's just a conversation, and the less scared you are of just being honest, open, and having that conversation, the better it will be for you and the better it will be for your client.
yeah. I mean, it's the same for any client, right? Like you need to have that conversation to establish their goals and to figure out a way forward together. And it's no different for a disabled person or anyone. Like it's literally the standard of what we do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it should be. I think like on the PT course, day one, it shouldn't be these are the muscles of the body, learn human anatomy and everything else. It should be okay. How do you talk to someone?
Yeah, exactly.
That'll
Yeah,
make a huge difference from that.
absolutely.
Fantastic. This has been an incredible chat, Danielle. Absolutely incredible. My mind is blown. So tell everyone how they can get in touch with you, how they can find out more about Unlimited You. Is it for only disabled people?
No.
Okay.
Like like you said earlier, like anybody has an ache or a pain, or anybody, you know, one day, like they might not fancy giving it their all, and they might think, just want to do a seated workout for a change. Literally, it's for anybody. It's just that we just so happen to use all disabled athletes. And yeah, typically the workouts will be separated into upper body and lower body as well. But yeah, that's just for ease more than anything. But literally, that is one thing. Like, it's not just for disabled people. Literally anybody will be able to do these workouts. And if people come and look at them, they'll probably be surprised because they're not any different to any other workout.
Who knew? Who knew a disabled person needed to do a deadlift, do a squat, do a bench press? You know,
Exactly.
you might need to adapt it slightly, but who knew their body needed that as much as any other body?
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. So how do people get in touch with it? How do people find out more about it? What's the situation there?
Yeah, so obviously I've got my Instagram page. I haven't posted yet.
You haven't. You need to get up with it. Come on, chop chop.
No, I've been trying to get all the content done. But yeah, I do like check messages and stuff like that. So feel free to reach out. And yeah, I'll be hopefully posting soon. So watch out for all the content. I'll be overloading everyone, catching up for all the time that I've missed.
Yeah, get like 3 years of content in a day. That's phenomenal. Well, Danielle, thanks for coming on and thanks for chatting and being so open and honest about how things need to improve and how things should change. And I think the lessons in this should be stretched out, not just to fitness, but life in general. Hey,
Yeah.
And that make the world a much better place for everybody involved. So from the bottom of my heart, and from the bottom of my listeners' heart, thank you so much for giving up your time today to chat about everything. And I wish you all the best with it. It sounds like a phenomenal project. And yeah, if there's anything you need help with or need any advice on anything, then please feel free to drop me a message, and I'll be more than happy to help.
Oh no, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute joy. Cool. Right. Well, you have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you very soon.
All right, you too. See ya.
Bye.